Ah, Star Wars, nothing but Star Wars. Give me the Star Wars, don't let them end.
Benvenidos, worldwide fans of our planet's hottest entertainment with an edge from a galaxy far, far away. I'm En Fuego here, welcoming you to my namesake program, Enfuegotainment. That's right, just call me Fuego for short, and this is more continued Star Wars coverage here on a Comic Book Wednesday. Yes, there is in future segments going to be a specific Star Wars day, probably Star Wars Saturday, Star Wars Sunday. I haven't completely decided yet because there is still so much content to cover in the complete canon coverage that I began last year in the year of 19, leading up to the Rise of Skywalker, including going back, reading all of the new novels that came out last year, which include Dooku Jedi Lost, Master and Apprentice, the Queen Amidala book, the title eluding me at this particular moment, but here in 2020 we have seen the release of a 7th season of the Clone Wars, a commencement of it, if you will, and I'm going to have a whole separate episode all about my personal favorite little story arcs in those first 5 seasons, plus the Lost Missions as well, because there's, oh boy, there's one arc in particular that is absolutely incredible. But so here today I am talking about the first in a couple of videos that I'm doing covering the Clone Wars Legacy. Now, the Clone Wars Legacy basically entails the fact that when Disney purchased Lucasfilm, they essentially were just like, sorry, we are canceling the Clone Wars on Cartoon Network. And the thing is, Dave Filoni and his team already had people, because you have to work so far ahead in the writing process, the pre-production process with an animated show, CGI of that magnitude, that they had ideas for season 7. They'd even done some actual animated storyboard kind of things and stuff, and yeah, so they did 3 different arcs, 2 different arcs, one of which, The Bad Batch, is being turned into the first few episodes of this 7th season, the first 4 episodes if I'm not mistaken. There was also a Ventress novel called Dark Apprentice, I believe, that was adapted into a novel and released that way. But then there was also Darth Maul, son of Dathomir. And Darth Maul, son of Dathomir, is very intriguing because of the fact that some of the absolute best episodes from the 5th season of the Clone Wars were tying up some of the loose ends with the arrival of Darth Maul, with him teaming up with his brother, Savage, with all of the different stuff that those two basically did after Maul, he apparently did survive Phantom Menace, and yeah, besides surviving Phantom Menace, he's totally disoriented and on this weird world. The name of the planet, so many goddamn planets in Star Wars, eludes me at the moment, but basically, his brother is sent to rescue him, and he is essentially by this witch mother of Dathomir revived, and he gets some she puts some of her strength into him to basically get his mind back where it needs to be. He gets these badass bionic legs, and he essentially decides, yeah, I've got a vendetta, and he starts pulling all these different strings. He allies with these rebellious group called Death Watch on the planet Mandalore, and then, besides that, he teams up with Black Sun and the Pikes, I want to say, I'm trying to remember the names of all of them, but he essentially, along with the Hutts, puts this whole team of, mercenaries and, underworld peeps together, and orchestrates this big-time plan to, just kind of go and try to take over the galaxy to a degree, and it's this big elaborate thing, and he ends up being double-crossed by the Death Watch guy, and yeah, he ends up fighting him with this dark saber that he takes from him, kills him, becomes this leader of Mandalore. But then when all of this, and this is obviously majorly abbreviated, but yes, he ends up just Darth Sidious catches wind that he is in fact still alive. He had felt his presence previously, but now it has most definitely been confirmed, and yes, there is this brutal battle that goes down. His brother Savage is killed, and he is taken, by Dooku and Sidious, and that's essentially the last time that we see in the regular series of the Clone Wars on television Darth Maul. But they had a whole story arc here that was going to address, just everything else. Like there it is. If it'll focus, the brightness is just delightful here. But yeah, I mean, it was a big time storyline sequel arc that they had put together here. And I'm not going to spoil the extent of it, but there is so much going on as far as intrigue, and it's very cool how you still have separatists versus, the Republic and all of that stuff going down, but there really are these wild cards, led by Darth Maul. And so when we join him here, he is in captivity, but some of those Mandalorians are trying to rescue him, to reunite him with, the other members of, Black Sun that support him and stuff, and the Pikes and everything. And so, yeah, they staged this escape, but you're led to believe, yeah, Sidious probably allowed it to happen because of the fact that he can feel that evil witch mother from Dathomir is, in fact, like a big threat to him, and he uses Maul to essentially get to her. And that's really the main crux of all of this, and you find out that, yeah, those two had a history in the fact that they had a palaver of sorts, if I'm going to use my king talk, and they shared their, dark magics, with each other, and then she in turn got double-crossed by Sidious, and so she wants to extract some revenge as well because of the fact that, Maul, her son, was taken from her, and that's really the crux of everything that, is spurring this, you've got your good, you've got your evil, and then you've got, these jokers, these weird wild cards that are, the Night Sisters and the Night Brothers who join up with Maul, and these, former Death Watch Mandalorian people and stuff, and including, Almec, I want to say, who is the imprisoned guy that they freed on that episode in Season 5. I mean, there's so much going on that if you just... Whereas the previous Darth Maul comic, which was technically released long after this, that Marvel put out, it takes place before the prequels, and it's about him going after this Jedi who has crashed and has been taken into the custody of these bounty hunters, and entails sport fighting, and it's the first time, a young Maul kills a Jedi and stuff. That is a story you can pick up familiarity with the character and just, its own little side thing. Son of Dathomir, on the other hand, is going to be extremely difficult to properly appreciate if you haven't watched all of those Season 5 episodes, because it is a direct sequel to that. And you've got Grievous in this, you've got Dooku in this, the Republic, including, Anakin is pretty much completely absent in this except for a scene or so. We get some Obi-Wan flavor as he tries to, go after, this brigade of Night Brothers, Mandalorians, some members of the Black Sun and the Pikes and stuff. And but you've got some awesome space battles. You've got some land battles between, the Night Brothers / Mandalorians and the Droid Army. You've got a really cool showdown with it essentially builds to, just jumping to a couple different planets, conflict here, conflict there, conflict there. But the end game is eventually this big showdown on Dathomir with, the Witch Mother there and Maul, and then it's basically them versus Dooku and Sidious, and it's a dope battle. It's interesting, though, because it kind of, at least in my estimation, this was originally a Dark Horse book, by the way, and then when the property was taken over by Disney, Marvel re-released it. But, it kind of contradicts one little series of episodes in particular in the Lost Missions where Mother returns and seems to be vanquished, and yet, these were supposed to be Season 7 episodes, and Lost Mission are Season 6 episodes, but, it's a really weird, it's not necessarily convoluted, because we know that there's lots of Star Wars Clone Wars episodes that were aired out of order, and during my watch of the entire series, Disney, through various sources including Disney Plus and their website and stuff like that, and I think IGN and various other nerd sites have published this, but there is like the airing order is completely different than their recommended viewing order. Like we start with like episodes in like season 3 and then jump back to 1, and then even the episodes in certain seasons when you finally do start going in order for a little while, then they'll jump like backwards and forwards, and so consult that if you guys want to truly just enjoy the Clone Wars proper. But I guess that little gripe that I just had about, you know, Mother showing up in that other story in Lost Missions, and, you know, what goes down with her here, you know, hey, the episode ordering is a little weird in Clone Wars, so I guess I will give it that. But I mean, the artwork in this is done by, let's jump to it really quickly. So pencils by Juan Frigeri, the inks are Moro Vargas, colors Wes Zioba, I guess, and it's written by Jeremy Barlow. But yes, and then there's, at least in this collected edition, 2 little bits from what is it? Tales of the Star Wars Tales 7, 8, 9, which were these very kiddie, almost like Calvin and Hobbesy, like at least in the style of the artwork bits that were done. But this story is badass. It's very dense. It's nowhere near as surface levelly, I guess, as that Maul comic book that was released later. As I said, you know, once Marvel took over, I said various times that, you know, the Dark Horse Marvel stuff, most of which, well, pretty much all of it, you know, no longer canon. There is some much more adult-esque writing, which is really what the Clone Wars eventually got to in later seasons. And if you are down with learning more about the Clone Wars legacy, as I mentioned, you definitely need to track this book down. You don't need to find the Dark Horse, you know, collected trade. As I said, Marvel, Lucasfilm, Disney did in fact re-release this because this is still canon, canon for Clone Wars. I can't wait to start reading the Dark Apprentice, which is that Ventress story I mentioned, which is also available on Audible as an audiobook if you want to listen to it like that. The like almost audio drama thing that Star Wars has been doing with a lot of their releases and did back in the 90s. Very cool stuff. And then the animatics, I guess you would say, or, you know, just animated storyboarding. It's not your quality of animation that we get in the finished product, and mouths don't really move, you know, stiff, you know, just like kind of characters floating around and stuff like that. But all the voice acting was finished for, you know, that Bad Batch story arc, which is now being finally, you know, animated and released for the proper season 7 on Disney Plus. But there is also a 4-episode arc that is on the Blu-ray Lost Missions, and it's also floating around on you know, YouTube and different places. So if you want to figure out the Star Wars legacy and those episodes that are still technically canon that, yeah, would have been their own thing, check that out as well. Jump on Wikipedia and read up on Clone Wars legacy just to find out all of those details that I had to just briefly jump through here. So, I have been Jaime En Fuego. Y'all can find moi on all social media sectors like Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, here on YouTube, where, yes, I have all kinds of videos here on Enfuegotainment. I did a funny Sonic video with like weird blue lighting. I was trying to do something different, a little bit silly, whatever. That's one of the more recent reviews that I've done, but also stuff this past year, like The Gentleman, all of that backlogged Star Wars coverage from last year in 2019 is sitting around as well, and lots more to come, including, yes, favorite episodes from the Clone Wars, and some coverage of both Dark Apprentice, as I mentioned, and Season 7. So also, if you are unfamiliar with what else I do beyond this, which I think is really be a head scratcher if that was the case, but yes, my forte, I guess, more so than sci-fi and Marvel and Disney and all this different stuff, is the Spooktacular youtube.com/The Horror Show channel, just like you see spelled below. That is, yeah, where you can find me at least, I mean, we do at least 1 episode a day, sometimes 2, depending upon the circumstances. Yeah, lots of awesome stuff there. Reviews at the Lodge, The Invisible Man being two of note so far this year, so jump over there. And then lastly, Monday evenings, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific, I take part on the Willis Greedia YouTube channel and a program called Show Business, where myself, Lindsay Mimsy from My 2 Cents of Nonsense, Chauncey K. Robinson, who is a noted Rotten Tomatoes critic, Rotten Tomatoes certified, which is pretty awesome, and obviously CP, the showrunner over there, we talk box office numbers from the previous weekend, look ahead and make some predictions to the forthcoming one, and lastly, just have a little bit of discussion about some of the biggest entertainment stories of the last week. So, I've been Fuego, y'all have been awesome, and until the real of Ka comes around once more, haha. Hasta luego, Cinemigos, and constant readers and viewers alike. But I'm hopeful that we get to share more of this sort of awesomeness sooner rather than later. And until then, you know the drill. May the Force be with you. Unless you're, in the Sith shit, and that's cool too.